total darkness. It was as if she could see everything, as if she had night sight. More than anything, she was aware of her own body, trapped in here, and her mind, trapped as well. Lizzie let her hands wander as much as they could. There were clothes in the closet, a male's, his. The closest to her was some kind of sports coat with round, smooth buttons, possibly a blazer. Lightweight, which reinforced her belief that this was a warm-weather city. Next was a vest. A smallish ball was in one pocket, hard, maybe a golf ball. What could she do with a golf ball? Could it be a weapon? A zipper on the pocket. What could she do with a zipper? She'd like to catch his tattooed dick in it. Then a windbreaker, flimsy, strong, sickening smell of tobacco on it, and then her favorite thing to touch, a soft overcoat, possibly cashmere. There were more treasures in the overcoat's pockets. A loose button, scraps of paper, from a notepad? A ballpoint pen, possibly a Bic. Coins, 4 quarters, 2 dimes, a nickel. Unless the coins were foreign, she wondered endlessly. There was also a book of matches, with a shiny cover and embossed letters. What did the embossed letters say? Could they tell her the city where she was being kept? Also a lighter. A half-pack of mints, which she knew to be cinnamon because she smelled it on her hands. And at the bottom of the pocket, lint. So insignificant, yet important to her now. Behind the overcoat were 2 bundles of his clothing still covered in plastic from the cleaners. A receipt of some kind in the first packet, attached by a staple. She imagined the name of the cleaners, an identification number in red, writing by some dry-cleaning store clerk. All of it seemed strangely precious to Lizzie because she had nothing else, except a powerful will to live and get her revenge on the wolf.
Chapter 92. I was a part of the large surveillance detail near the house in Highland Park, and I thought we were going to take Lawrence Lipton down soon, maybe within hours. We'd been told that Washington was working with the Dallas police. I stared absently at the house, a large 2-story Tudor on about 2.5 acres of very expensive real estate. It looked pristine. A red brick sidewalk went from the street to an arched doorway which led to a 16-room house. The big news that day in Dallas was about a fire in Kessler Park that had incinerated a 64,000-square-foot mega-mansion. The Lipton spread was less than 1/3 that size, but it was still impressive, or depressing, or both. It was around 9 in the evening. A supervisory agent from the Dallas office, Joseph Denyeau, came on my earphones. "We just got word from the director's office. We have to back off immediately. I don't understand it either. The order couldn't be any clearer, though. Pull back. Everybody head to the office. We need to reconnoiter and talk about this." I looked at my partner in the car that night, an agent named Bob Shaw. It was pretty obvious that he didn't understand what the hell had just happened either. "What was that?" I asked him. Shaw shook his head and rolled his eyes. "What do I know? We go back to the field office, drink some bad coffee. Maybe somebody higher up explains it to us, but don't count on it." It took us only 15 minutes to get to the field office at that time of night. We filed into a conference room at the field office, and I saw a lot of weary, confused, and pissed-off agents. Nobody was saying much yet. We'd gotten close to a possible break on this case, and now we'd been ordered to pull back. Nobody seemed to understand why. The ASAC finally came out of his office and joined the rest of us. Joseph Denyeau looked thoroughly disgusted as he threw his dusty cowboy boots up on a conference table. "I have no idea," he announced. "Not a clue, folks. Consider yourselves debriefed." So about 40 agents waited for an explanation of the night's action, but one didn't come, or wasn't forthcoming, as they say. The agent in charge, Roger Nielsen, finally called D.C. and was told they would get back to us. In the meantime, we were to stand down, We might even be sent home in the morning. Around 11 o'clock, Denyo got another update from Nielsen and passed it on to us. "They're working on it," he said, and smiled wryly. "Working on what?" somebody called from the back. "Oh, hell, I don't know, Donnie. Working on their pedicures. Working on getting all of us to quit the Bureau. Then there'll be no more agents, and I guess no more embarrassing screw-ups for the media to report. I'm going to get some sleep. I'd advise all of you to do the same." That's what we did. Chapter 93. We were back at the field office by 8 the next morning. Several of the agents looked a little messed up after the night off. First thing, Director Burns was on the line from Washington. I was pretty sure the director rarely, if ever, spoke to the troops like this. So why do it now? What was up? Agents around the room were looking at one another. Brows crinkled, eyebrows arched. No one could fathom why Burns was so involved. Maybe I could. I'd seen the restlessness in him, the dissatisfaction with the ways of the past, even if he couldn't effectively change them all at once. Burns had started as a street cop in Philadelphia and worked his way up to police commissioner. Maybe he could change things at the Bureau. "I wanted to explain what happened yesterday," he said over the speakerphone. Every agent in the room listened intently, myself included. "And I also wanted to apologize to all of you. Everything got territorial for a while. The Dallas police, the mayor, even the governor of Texas was involved. The Dallas police asked that we pull back because they didn't have full confidence in us. I agreed to the action because I wanted to talk it through with them rather than force our presence there. They didn't want mistakes, and they weren't sure that we have the right man. The Lipton family has a good reputation in the city. He's very well connected. Anyway, Dallas was surprised that we listened to their concerns, and now they've backed off again. They respect the team we've assembled. We will continue our action against Lawrence Lipton, and believe me, we're going to take that bastard down. Then we're going to take Pasha Sorokin down, the wolf. I don't want you to worry about past mistakes. Don't worry about mistakes at all. Just do your job in Dallas. I have the utmost confidence in you." Burns went off the line, and just about every agent's face in the room wore a smile. It was quite magical, actually. The director had said things that some of them had been waiting years to hear. Especially welcome was the news that he believed in their ability and wasn't worried about mistakes. We were back in the game. We were expected to bring down Lawrence Lipton. Minutes after the phone call ended, my cell phone went off. I answered, and it was Burns himself. "So how'd I do?" he asked. I could hear the smile in his voice. I could almost see the cocky upturn of his lip when he grinned. He knew how he'd done. I walked away from the group into a far corner of the room and told him what he wanted to hear. "You did good. They're pumped to do the job." Burns exhaled. "Alex, I want you to turn up the heat on this punk. I sold you hard to Dallas as a key member of the team. They bought you and your reputation. They know how good we think you are. I want you to make Lawrence Lipton very uncomfortable. Do it your own way." I found myself smiling. "I'll see what I can do. And Alex, contrary to what I said to the others, don't make any mistakes." Chapter 94. Don't make any mistakes. It was a hell of an exit line. I had to give him that. Kind of funny, in a sadistic, hard-ass way. I was starting to like Ron Burns again. Couldn't help myself. But did I trust him? Somehow, I got the feeling that Burns wasn't that worried about the mistakes, though. He wanted to catch the kidnappers, especially Pasha Sorokin, even if we didn't know yet who he really was or where he lived. According to Burns's orders, all I had to do was figure out a way to break Lawrence Lipton down, do it in a hurry, and not embarrass the Bureau in any way. I met with Roger Nielsen on possible strategies. We had already resumed surveillance on Lipton. It was decided that it was time to put real pressure on him, to let him know we were in Dallas and that we knew about him. After Burns's phone call, I wasn't surprised that I had been chosen to confront Lipton. We decided that I would go and see Lipton at his office in the Lakeside Square building at the intersection of the LBJ Freeway and the North Central Expressway. The building was 20 stories high, with lots of reflective glass. It was practically blinding as I looked skyward in the Texas sunshine. I walked inside at a little past 10 in the morning. Lipton's office suite was on the 19th floor. When I got off the elevator, a recorded voice said, "Howdy." I stepped into a large reception area with half an acre of wine-colored carpeting, beige walls, and dark brown leather sofas and chairs everywhere. They were framed, signed photos of Roger Staubach, Nolan Ryan, and Tom Landry on the walls. I was told to wait in reception by a very proper-looking young woman in a dark blue pantsuit. She sat self-importantly behind a sleek walnut desk under recessed lighting. She looked all of 22 or 23 years old, fresh out of charm school. She acted and spoke as properly as she looked. "I'll wait, but let Mr. Lipton know it's the FBI. It's important that I see him," I told her. The receptionist smiled sweetly as if she'd heard all this before. Then she went back to answering the phone calls coming in on her headset. I sat down and waited patiently. I waited for 15 minutes. Then I got back up again. I strolled over to the reception desk. "You told Mr. Lipton that I'm here?" I asked politely. "That I'm with the FBI?" "I did, sir," she said in a syrupy voice that was starting to rub me the wrong way. "I need to see him right now," I told the girl, and waited until she made another call to Lipton's assistant. They talked briefly, then she looked back at me. "Do you have identification, sir?" she asked. She was frowning now. "I do. They're called creds." "May I see it, please? Your creds?" I showed off my new FBI badge, and she looked it over like a fast-food counter person inspecting a $50 bill. "Could you please wait over at the seating area?" she asked again. Only now she seemed a little nervous, and I wondered what Lawrence Lipton's assistant had told her, what her marching orders were. "You don't seem to understand, or I'm not making myself clear," I finally said. "I'm not here to fool around with you, and I'm not here to wait." The receptionist nodded. "Mr. Lipton is in a meeting. That's all I know, sir." I nodded back. "Tell his assistant to pull him out of his meeting right now. Have her tell Mr. Lipton that I'm not here to arrest him yet." I wandered back to the seating area, but I didn't bother to sit. I stood there and looked out on the magnificent Technicolor green lawns that stretched to the concrete edge of the LBJ Freeway. I was burning inside. I'd just acted like a D.C. street cop. I wondered if Burns would have approved, but it didn't matter. He'd given me some rope, but I also made a decision that I wasn't going to change because I was an FBI agent now. I was in Dallas to bring down a kidnapper. I was here to find out if Mrs. Elizabeth Connolly and others were alive, and maybe being held somewhere as slaves. I was back on the job. I heard a door open behind me, and I turned. A heavy-set man with graying hair was standing there, and he looked angry.
"I'm Lawrence Lipton. What the hell is this about?"
Chapter 95.
"What the hell is this about?"
Lipton repeated from the doorway in a loudmouth, big-shot way. He was speaking to me as if I were a door-to-door brush salesman.
"I think you were told that I'm in an important meeting. What does the FBI want with me, and why can't it wait? Why don't you have the courtesy to make an appointment?"
There was something about his attitude that didn't completely track for me. He was trying to be a tough guy, but I didn't think he was. He was just used to beating up on other businessmen. He wore a rumpled blue dress shirt and a rep's tie, pinstriped trousers and tasseled loafers, and he was at least 50 pounds overweight. What could this man have in common with the wolf? I looked at him and said, "It's about kidnapping. It's about murder. Do you want to talk about this out here in reception?" "Sterling." Lawrence Lipton paled and lost most of his bravado.